Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is November 7th, 2022, and let's give it the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So, first piece of news, and it's massive. The Ukrainians managed to destroy a Russian grouping in Kakhovka in Kherson, and about 200 soldiers might have perished. So that's a huge attack. I don't remember last time that the HIMARS system basically killed so many Russian soldiers, but again, it's a huge morale blow to the Russians. If we look at the map where that is, Nova Kakhovka is right over here on the left side of the Dnipro River. And so we managed to strike them somewhere around here. So that's great news. And I think perhaps it was a group of Russian soldiers trying to fill in the gaps here that we're trying to get through. So again, that could have really slowed down some of their plans. In other news, there's also another big failed attack from the Russians in Pavlivka and Vuhledar. That was a multi-day attack by the Russians, but they were foiled by us. And apparently, a Russian pro-Russian channel on Telegram confirmed that about 300 soldiers died in this multi-day attack that the Russians tried to do. And this is just off of Donetsk city, so very southeast of Ukraine. And the Russians have been very incapable of really pushing really far away from the city because Donetsk is a bastion. It's kind of a Russian, pro-Russian occupied symbol, and they just can't afford to have the Ukraine so close to them. So they're really trying to push out, and they're having difficulty. But it's another great defeat for the Russian army, and I'm happy that we're able to hold our ground there. In other news, in terms of the drones, the Ukraine is going to produce more USVs, so unmanned surface vessels, to counter essentially the Russian Black Sea fleet. And it's a great move. I think that we need more of these. We don't really have a navy. We kind of lost it since 2014. So having these is going to be very deadly against, old Soviet ships that don't really have the systems in place to track these drone vessels. So I'm very excited to see what the future brings us in the next few months in terms of what these drones are capable of if we start producing really nice modern ones as well. Again, in other news, Oleksiy Reznikov, the Ukraine Minister of Defense, confirmed that we got NASAMS, so surface-to-air missiles, coming from Norway, and the speed air defense systems from Spain. So I am very glad to hear about that. We need those to protect our skies, especially from the Iranian drones, the Shaheeds, and Russian cruise missiles. And now it's going to be soon Iranian cruise missiles, unfortunately. So I'm very glad that we got these pieces of equipment, and a huge thank you to our partners for that. So Russia is likely to losing aircraft faster than it can replace them, says the intelligence of the United Kingdom. It just makes sense. Russia's lost apparently over 300 aircraft, almost 300 aircraft, close to 280, and compared to 120 in the Afghanistan occupation of the Soviets. So it's a massive amount. For certain countries, that would be their entire airplane fleet. And again, Russia doesn't have the equipment, nor now it's under full sanctions, so it can't really repair these aircraft anymore the way it would like to. So they're not going to use that many as of right now. They've pretty much been very quiet down the sky, so it just shows that it's going to be very catastrophic for the Russian army in the next few months in terms of being able to operate these jets. So last thing, and that's to my American viewers, Yevgeny Prigozhin. So he's a very influential man in Russia, one of the closest allies of Putin. He's an oligarch that made his fortune through the 90s in the gang lifestyle of Russia back in those days in the 90s, the mafia years. And essentially, he says that Russia interferes, and will interfere in US elections. So that's my question to my viewers. If they really want to vote for somebody that doesn't take care of the American interests of democracy, freedom, and all these things that US represents, well, it's really important that they vote for the right person that really wants the best for them and the American people. So by saying that, Yevgeny Prigozhin says that they have been intervening in the US in terms of the elections and everything. And tomorrow's a huge day for the US people. It's midterms, lots of elections going to be happening. So, just please vote for the person that really represents these US values that everybody loves, freedom, democracy, and not anything that represents corruption, bribery, lies. We don't like that. So unfortunately, it shows that Russia really has interest in meddling in other people's affairs. It's not only the US, but other European nations. I can think of Germany. Germany is one of them. And unfortunately, instead of taking care of its own people who really require help in Russia, they would rather spend money in meddling. So that's the way it is. And I wanted to show you guys a couple videos before I am done. So let's get to it. This is captured Russian soldiers in Svatove, on the Svatove front. And let's hear what they have to say. Very interested.
Война, и это вообще не война.
Командование бросает.
They say that their command has left them. They pretty much say that the command has left them and that they were hungry. They haven't had anything to eat for days. They look in miserable condition as well. They're cold. You can see that. They're reduced to like animal living. And this guy says that they've been hit by their own through artillery for 3 days straight. So their own people, their own soldiers have been hitting them. It's like crazy. So anyways, I'm not going to show the entire video, but it just shows how terrible the situation are for these Russian soldiers. And that's why they're very glad to be prisoners of war of Ukraine because we treat them fairly like humans, unlike the Russian government who doesn't care about them and would rather just see them end up on a one-way ticket that goes to Ukraine. This is a video of a British Mastiff MRP that was carrying Ukrainian crew, and it took a huge RPG hit on the side, huge bullets of high caliber, and the crew survived. So thank you for the British for this vehicle, and that saves lives. Good vehicle saves lives. This video is the Donetsk, and that's my last video, is the Donetsk administrative building of the railway, I think, that is burning. And so I believe this is in Donetsk city. If I'm not mistaken, it's a massive strike by the Ukrainians. Apparently, there were it's a multi-role building which had commanders, soldiers. Essentially, the Russians are hiding in these public spaces, so they cannot be found at this point. Yeah, it's a massive strike. You can see, like, definitely probably HIMARS systems, very likely. And yeah, so it's really interesting to see that the Russians now are hiding behind buildings like that with, they probably store ammunition in there and other things. So it's a good strike by us. So in terms of the map, I just wanted to show you guys another thing. And these are unconfirmed reports before I leave you. Apparently, the Russians have also managed to take a small settlement called Bilohorivka, and not to be confused with this one, which is very close to Severodonetsk. So this town is not the one I'm speaking about, but one that is much lower in the map. And apparently, there are reports that the Russians tried to pull a very big strike here, and they managed to take this small settlement in Bilohorivka. So the Russians are indeed pushing as well, with maximum force. And I think their strategy is just to really surround the Ukrainians like that, get us into a pocket that we can't get out of, whether it be through Slavyansk or much lower through Pokrovsk this way, so perhaps they can combine their forces around. But it's going to be a very difficult task. So I think that their most reliable strategy right now is to push through Bakhmut because they see that they can make this pocket if they're successful here. But again, I don't really have any faith in that. I think the Russians are going to struggle to do that. But yes, they managed to very likely grab this small little settlement here. But again, it doesn't mean much. It's just snail's pace at this point. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Really, I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. It really motivates me to make these videos. I try to make them on a daily basis, but sometimes I'm not that good at that, so don't expect me always pushing for daily updates. And leave me a comment about what you think in terms of the latest developments on the front lines, especially on the map, in Pavlivka, in Bilohorivka, and the strike that was done by the Ukrainians with the HIMARS. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.